Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Book of Vince, the Wrestling Dream Match podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Martin Bennett. With me, as always, is the Helsinki Hellraiser, Anthony Hall.
God. What? Oh, my God. Who is the Helsinki Hellraiser?
You have no clue.
How many Finnish wrestlers have there been in the promotions? Just for the sake of time. There's our guest is indicating to me one, and
I figured they would know who this is. So
I simply have no idea. Just hit me with the name. Hit me with the name.
It is the one, the only Ludwig Borga.
All right. Well,
I knew I needed to go deep on this one.
The obscurity of that really helps tee off this monumental episode of Book of Vince.
So Marty, I'm not going to explain who this is because I'd rather talk about it with our guests because it'll be interesting to know if they know all these things. But anyways, it's our 50th episode, Anthony.
Yeah, I can't believe we've made it. We started this thing in the heat of the pandemic, and we are going to continue this thing in the heat of the pandemic.
Cheers.
Oh, man. This is going to be a crazy one, I think.
Oh, I have no clue what's going to happen.
All of the episodes that we have done up until this point have been preparing us possibly for this moment. So I am going to set it up. We're going to bring in our guest. Please welcome wrestler, actor, craftsman, the bee's knees, and the Family Feud Fast Money winner, His Majesty RJ City.
Thank you. I think wrestler should be presented with quotation marks around it. First of all, wrestler in concept only.
I do honestly, RJ, I do honestly love that you use the like slogan, your favorite wrestler you've never seen wrestle.
It wasn't even like I didn't even use it. People say it like all the time. They're like, "Oh, I saw your stuff," but I haven't seen any of your stuff. I basically only exist on Twitter.
I will 100% admit it. I've never seen you wrestle,
and I would suggest you keep it that way.
That's not true, RJ. I have seen you wrestle. You did lose to a man who was on a legendary losing streak, but it was great.
Yes, I'm like Frank Zappa. Where you're
That's a great way to describe it.
He's cool and whatever, like cool. Like don't listen to him though.
Yep.
You think he'll be like nobody really listens to him.
That's what Frank's okay.
Yeah,
people like that.
Yeah, like I get it. I get the idea. I'm sure he's very smart. He's a good musician. He just hasn't made any good songs. But let's get back to business. You were talking about. Let me see if I can nail this down. Real name Tony Halme, Halme.
Yeah. Yep.
That's Ludwig Borga's real name.
Yes.
He was a wrestler, but also a MMA fighter and politician, if I'm correct.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're reading the wiki that I'm looking at right now.
Yes. Strange life.
So it's for sure. But what it caught me was I was like, oh, yeah, I'll just pick this because it sounds like a 90s wrestler. And sure enough, when I looked up, was in New Japan from 90 to 93, won the tag team championships, and then was in WWF from 90 to 94 and ended, where was it?
Tatanka's
undefeated streak.
Correct. And I believe he debuted against a post-Rockers Marty Jannetty. And my favorite thing about post-Rockers Marty Jannetty is that he added the tassels to his outfit that Sean gave up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like he just had more tassel. Like he just was really tasseled out more than before. He's like, I don't need another guy. I can have all these tassels myself. And Ludwig's,
I have the budget now.
There's these promos of him just shitting on America, like Bret Hart where he's a foreign heel, but he's making reasonable points. And he's walking by a river, and I believe the quote is, "You call this the land of milk and honey? Well, down here it stinks funny." You're gonna have to look that up. I don't want to misquote the man, but that's pretty close to what it was. And his finishing move was he would kind of press you up like a flapjack and punch you in the stomach on the way down.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well,
what was that maneuver called?
I would love to know.
I mean, before we started, and I was just looking him up, I watched a match between him and Lex Luger in '93 that had no commentary. So it was it's weird watching in person. Watching a wrestling match is one thing. Watching it like on TV, but with no commentary, is so weird.
I always, because when I watch the few matches I've had, when I watch them back, I go, oh my God, these look horrible compared to like stuff on TV. But then like you have to add in the camera cuts and the commentary like that. Most of my indie matches, the sound is not mixed correctly. You know what I mean? Like, this is none of this. I'm never going to enjoy any of these. But I will also say the name, what is it? Helsinki Hellraiser?
Yeah.
The term Hellraiser is really undone by how adorable phonetically Helsinki sounds.
It's
Helsinki,
true.
like it's too cute.
Very cute. Yeah, very, very cute.
I never looked at it that way.
That was really his undoing, in my opinion.
So Anthony, the finishing maneuver is called there's two here. It doesn't seem like either of these are the one that RJ was talking about. It, at least on Pro Wrestling Fandom, it's backbreaker rack and leaping clothesline, sometimes from the top rope.
Oh,
interesting.
Oh, I gotta
the
track
man
down
has
that move then.
A secret finisher.
Now, Martin, you and I have
Yes.
never met before, correct?
No, that is true.
Okay. But Anthony was sweet enough. We've done some comedy shows together. And then you were sweet enough to be a part of me and Dalton's two-man comedy, quote unquote, spectacular.
And it was spectacular. One of the highlights of my pre-pandemic comedy career, for sure.
Yes. And that all came together. It was a favor to Dalton. I needed an opponent last minute, and I was like, for Destiny Wrestling, I was like, I think I can get Dalton. And I messaged him like, hey, I need whatever. Like, do you want to come? And he's like, fine, but only if we can do a comedy show the next day. So I was like, okay. I was like, no problem. Done and done. And the next day was Thanksgiving Monday, Canadian Thanksgiving. I was like, oh, no.
Oh,
but
boy.
It worked out well. Janelle Dennis was on it. Michelle Coburn, Nug, of course. And you did a good improv tag team with him.
Yeah, that was great. We got to play some short form games. And I think a couple weeks after, when I went to Greektown, there was just some guy in the crowd that was like, hey, you were at the comedy show with RJ. And I was like, oh, yeah. And that was the first time anyone had ever recognized me for my comedy. So thank you.
There you go. I will tell you, like, wrestling fans, like people who come to comedy shows because they're wrestling fans and they saw me or Nug or whoever, you can tell. You can look at it in the audience and go, you are not familiar with, because they're too comfortable heckling.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's really hard. Like you've done two strikes together, Jason, like the wrestling version.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible sometimes.
Oh, yeah. They bury me almost instantly.
Yeah.
No matter what I do. Like if I have a just like properly fleshed out character bit where I do a horrible impersonation of one of my faves of the time, they'll immediately just shut it down.
Yeah.
My only successful time winning them over was I think one of the first wrestling two strikes I did, which is a wrestling short form improv competition show for all of our listeners. I did a heel turn at the end because I lost, and I took off the shirt that I was wearing, and I was wearing a John Cena shirt. And famously, the comedy bar owner, Gary Rideout, cosplays as John Cena during the show. So everyone just started cheering for me, and it was the one and only time I ever won them over.
Wrestling fans, especially at a comedy show, they're like it's a plane full of people who should be kicked off a plane. They're a collection of every person that you're just like, I hope the stewardess just says, get off the plane, sir, please.
Yeah,
everybody, out.
Yeah, wrestling fans already, when they're at an indie or at any wrestling event, are trying to get over and they're trying to get themselves over. But when you put them in a comedy show, it's like they almost have incentive now to get over, so they can be the funniest person in the room.
And they have no concept of like, let's say they heckle, then there's a comeback and it's great and people laugh, a fun exchange, and then they don't know like that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, great, we had this moment.
Yeah, but it's a nice sociological experiment.
It's definitely wrestling fans are like one of two ilks, where it's either they are very socially awkward, because all of the shows that I've ever been to, it's like you either see the people that are just sitting there and they're like, I came here to watch wrestling because I like wrestling. And then and they don't know like when to like really cheer or like get involved. They're just like, I'm here to watch the show because I like wrestling. And then you have the people who are where they're just like, this is my time to be absolutely obnoxious and loud because I can.
My other theory is that audiences are better when the lights are off. Yeah. Because when the lights are on, as they are in most indie shows, they have very community center lighting sometimes. You don't want to see the other, like the audience, especially when they're all visible, will just be quiet to listen to the loudest fan, you know, and then that person will heckle and whatever. When they're all off, there's a little more, I guess, secrecy to it or anonymity, and they can act together. Yeah. And it's almost like being at a party or being at a nightclub with all the lights on. No one would want to dance or socialize.
With all the lights on, you can see everything.
Because there is a little bit of, inherent embarrassment in being a wrestling fan. So having the lights off, I think, helps. Yeah.
It's just like sex. As it were.
All right, let's get to it, RJ. What fantasy booking have you brought to us on this 50th episode of Book It, Vince?
Anthony's the one who's really in the reins here.
This is a little more, I would say, Book It, Vince Senior.
Oh, okay. Good.
I think this is how we're going. So Legend has it in 1979. Andy Kaufman was always hanging around Madison Square Garden at the wrestling shows. This is kind of how he befriended Freddie Blassie and Lou Albano and all those kinds of people. And he pitched to Vince Sr., let me do some wrestling. At the time, I think he was doing I wrestle women as part of his comedy. But he said, let's do this. Like, I think we can do a thing. And Vince Sr. was like, absolutely not. No. I'm sorry, but no. And then I believe it was wrestling photographer and writer George Napolitano who said, hey, why don't you go to Memphis? I'm sure they would be happy to have you. And that's when he got hooked up with Jimmy Hart and Jerry the King Lawler. But I always think about, what if Vince Sr. had said yes?
Wow. Oh, boy.
Because he serves it up really on a platter. It is kind of, I understand why Vince Sr. said no. He was also mad at Hulk Hogan for doing the Rocky movie.
Right.
But Andy had done, it's 1979. So he's firmly established himself on Saturday Night Live and Taxi. Okay. And there's an interview on YouTube of Vince Jr., who's a ring announcer commentator at this time, interviewing Andy as, a celebrity who's here and blah. And Andy tries to wedge in his intergender champion gimmick. He's going full for it.
Oh, wow.
I'm just going to, this is my camera time. I'm going to get it in.
Yeah.
And Vince just kind of well, good luck. This is not going to happen at all.
Man.
And then I was thinking, wow, in many ways, Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler, that whole thing was the Rock and Wrestling Connection way before it, but 5 years. And you can see, when Vince Jr. takes over, let's bring in Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper and Liberace. And, but I go, what would have happened then? What's the 1979 WWE roster like? And I realize it's very thin. If you want to bring it up, Martin, you can look at it and see and go, oh my. The top of the card is still like Bruno.
Okay.
Wow.
So there's big babyface Bruno. Andre the Giant is there. Ivan Putski, but it's primarily if there's a babyface champion, there's going to be a lot of heels, right? So it's primarily
Tito's there.
Yeah.
Peter Maivia.
Yes.
Pat Patterson.
Yes, but more than that, the interesting part of it all is the heels. Yeah. Freddie Blassie is there. Lou Albano is there.
Yeah.
The Grand Wizard, the Samoans, luscious Johnny Valiant, who my theory was the inspiration for Andy Kaufman's Tony Clifton character. Because if you watch a luscious Johnny Valiant promo, you're like, this is just Tony Clifton. This is just a slovenly, belligerent man.
Interesting.
So, in my head, so if I had to look at that roster and make a super card of it, also, there's basically no women there.
No, there's only Moolah.
Who seems to just pop in and out sporadically when they want,
Yeah.
She beats somebody and then probably leaves, for a couple months.
I'm looking at a list of the roster. There's 37 people, and literally the only woman listed is Moolah.
Right. So there's no Velvet McIntyre or Wendy Richter or anyone of that nature. And when Hogan is there, he's a heel. Mm-hmm. So, it's a strange time before everything that we knew.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Just because to me, what first stands out is that, specifically, well, I'm not as familiar as with the timeline as you are, but at the time, had the culture of Kaufman, did people think that he was crazy at that time, or did it more come later where people this guy's weird?
I think it came later, and I think the wrestling in Memphis, and he was also, when you look back, it sounds like, he just wrestled Lawler once and then that was it. And they did Letterman and that was it. He was there for a year and a half and turned face and then turned heel again. And he really, gave it. And I'm sure his agents were like, what? Please stop this.
Stop this.
Oh my God.
Just please do TV.
Yeah. And I don't know if anyone outside of Memphis thought it was real at the time.
Right.
But that was a very Memphis. He couldn't have done that stuff in New York at all.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. Because it's the first sort of celebrity being brought into this world. And would people latch onto it? Would attract people?
Right. And he's being brought in as a heel. Mm-hmm. He's not likable in wrestling ever at all. So you can't Mr. T him. It can't be Hulk Hogan and Andy Kaufman. That would have been the worst team ever. So
now
what I think,
fantasy booking.
So I do think you do it the New York style of having all angles and press and leading up to one big match. Mm-hmm. And I think, he creates sort of an ultimate heel manager stable of him and Freddie Blassie and Lou Albano and the Grand Wizard and Johnny Valiant. And then I think it leads into some sort of blowout tag match, whether it's a 6-man or an 8-man, because Andy's not going to go 1-on-1.
No, not with some of the best.
And I feel like
grapplers
Lou Albano could have still wrestled at this point. So I feel like you have Lou Albano, the Valiants, and Andy Kaufman against Ivan Putski. Right. Well, I'm looking and Ivan Putski was very If there was an immigrant neighborhood, there was a wrestler for you in New York.
I mean, you look at this roster of people, and it's like, yeah, you know who all the bad guys are because it's and you know who all the good guys are. It's Nikola
all the dudes from Europe,
right?
Yeah.
And you know, Bruno is not going to want any part of this.
No.
So like, let's take him out completely. Because
do you think this they at the time they would have gone with this like what we now see as like the very Hollywood angle of like a big TV star like coming in and like make a big hoopla of it? Or
well, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think so, and they didn't. But I'm also like, you know, it's weird. It's very backwards in my head. Like you look at WWE from 1979, and it feels like 100 years old. But SNL had already been on for 5 years at this point.
Yeah.
And Taxi had already been on. So, and Letterman's there. Like Andre the Giant had done Letterman. And it's like, it's all right there, guys. It's in New York. It's like down the street. What are you doing?
It's also that at the time, you know, they thought that people that were watching really thought that it was, I mean, real. Almost like you don't have the characters yet that kind of really exaggerate. Well, you do have exaggerated characters, but not like I'm thinking like, you know, like Flair and Macho and those people,
right?
Where it's like the exaggerated character that definitely probably doesn't live a normal life, but you have these characters that could just be someone that, you know, at least how they portray like the heroes. And so to have a comedian come in and want to wrestle, because otherwise like all the other celebrities that would come in, they just came in as, you know, a cameo or like, oh, I'm here, and then have a little moment. But to have a TV star to come in and basically try to make it about them or get people together to help the bad guys take over with and taking out the good guys, it's like, it's super interesting. Because if it hadn't been done yet, then you're kind of reinventing how the celebrity integration and cameo in wrestling would work, and how involved it would be, or if it's a one-time thing.
And the other thing, go ahead.
Let's be honest with Andy Kaufman's physique, and he's not the most intimidating looking person to want to jump into a wrestling ring. Like, obviously this has been a thing where actors want to, you know, get into their passion, their first love that made them very passionate about the performing arts and try to wrestle. But some of these guys are like, you know, legitimate athletes or guys that have been in a gym before, like, you know, Stephen Amell. I guess Arquette would fit in this.
Certainly not in the beginning.
No. And Andy Kaufman seems like a bit of a work in progress if you're trying to get him in ring. Like, he definitely needs to run the ropes for a while before anybody would believably be like, oh, this guy could win a match.
Right. So that's why I think you have to hide him in a multi-man tag.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, it would be really interesting because we have seen now what, you know, a celebrity coming in and participating in wrestling, where you have the, you know, the people that are physically talented to do it or have trained, you know, like, hell, I was blown away by Bad Bunny at Mania. But and then you get something like Snoop Dogg doing a splash off the top rope
and getting about 10% of
it, sticking the landing. But if that hasn't been seen yet, and you have a celebrity come in and suddenly get involved, it would definitely, like, the kayfabe of, is this real? Like, this person that we know on TV or that we've seen in interviews coming in and attacking someone, like, that would be crazy to see for the first time. Instead of it being like, oh, this person's here, hi, wave to the crowd, blah, blah, and they throw a punch,
Right.
Instead it's like if Kaufman like showed up at a show, ran into the ring and started stomping on someone, like that'd be wild to see at the time.
Right.
And to me, in my head, the ultimate payoff, obviously, is just him getting destroyed. And looking at that roster, there is nobody better to do it than Andre.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That'd be amazing.
And, you don't need to be trained to just have Andre punch you and then sit on your chest. Like, I think he can, take an ass kicking in that regard. And it may be a little more fun than when Andy got the pile driver. Like, that felt, everyone was like, oh my God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This might be a little more. So I feel like you do a multi-man, and however you want to stack the heel side, there's a bunch of options. And then a team baby face, and Andre is the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And Andre had also done a Letterman at that point and was already in the $6 million man as Bigfoot, lest we forget.
Oh my.
So, he's not a stranger to this. And then I also go, is the cast of Taxi ringside?
Jeez.
Is Tony Danza saying, Andy, please don't do this? Like,
that would be funny.
Now I'm like really invested.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Do you think Kaufman gets his band of heels together and they make an appearance on Saturday Night Live together?
I think if not Saturday Night Live, definitely Letterman. Yeah. I mean, Andy seemed to have the "hey, come and do whatever you want" clause with Letterman, and he's done much weirder on that show. He even appeared with Freddie Blassie on the show, so I mean, I think that's a definite.
I was literally like, when we were planning on you coming onto the podcast, I was thinking, okay, he's going to pick something that's old because that's RJ. And then I started thinking like, okay, what are some like tropes of like golden era wrestling? And yeah, like the having a wrestler appear on late night talk shows and actually like appear before an audience to present themselves as their character rather than just like talking as them and talking about the business or whatever, like them showing up and actually being their character and putting over the story and everything. Like that is an art that is, well, obviously because kayfabe's dead. But that's a piece of wrestling that's lost now, which is really interesting. And you could have that line be blurred with Kaufman bringing people and other wrestlers onto those shows and putting it over, because then people would go, well, that's Andy Kaufman talking. He's not being a character. So then are these people really trying to beat each other up?
Right.
Does
and
he
even,
really
even
want to
if
kick
like
this person's ass?
And you would still believe like Andre would, kick someone's ass. He was very like in peak Afro Andre at this stage, which is like, fantastic. And keep in mind, only like 3 years later, Lou Albano would co-star in a movie called Wise Guys with Danny DeVito and Joe Piscopo.
Oh, yep.
And that's why there's a weird backstage interview with Danny DeVito and Roddy Piper.
Yep.
Because they would come see Lou and they were like, we love him. Like, this whole thing is crazy. So, it's all of this seems like it could have happened logically, like just before it did.
Mm-hmm.
It's
really interesting. Wow.
So what are some of the key moments of this feud, whether that be in media, different stunts to set it up and to build tension? Like what are we talking here? We talking about these guys potentially showing up on Letterman. Yeah. What are some different things that can help us build the tension before Andy gets his chest caved in by Andre?
So I also want to ask, who do you think is like Kaufman's main guy on the roster?
What do you mean?
Like, who does he immediately side with?
Freddie Blassie, because he's been friends with him. And then I think, Freddie Blassie, who is Freddie Blassie managing at that time?
I have no clue. You're probably the best
bevy
person
of
to
people. Sometimes Hulk Hogan is heel Hulk Hogan, good mid-card muscle to protect Andy at the time? Maybe.
That's, yeah.
Because then I think it's 1982 maybe, that they do the Showdown at Shea, and it's Hulk and Andre, the original Hulk and Andre that no one ever talks about. So I think that is very possible. I just think a stable of Andy and heel managers, and then whoever else they're managing is almost irrelevant. Just because they're just there to take the bumps. Yeah.
Just their muscle, while you have all the managers going out and just flapping their gums and talking. That's very good. Yeah, no.
Yeah, so is it Andy and the Samoans, and the Samoans do all the work, and then Andy just gets in a few kicks? I think Andy appearing with every manager on the show as a lead up, like managing the managers. We just get a lot of heat.
Yeah, that'd be good. Would he like be a special guest at a show and then do the classic, like, jump the barricade and be there? Or would he be special guest ringside? Or would it just be, why is Andy Kaufman running to the ring?
Well, I think we start with that promo with Vince that he actually did, right? And it's like, what is this guy, really being an asshole? And then, the next time you interview Freddie Blassie, it's like, I don't mind that Andy Kaufman. I think he's a nice young kid. and then that starts this thing.
Yeah, and because so it's all built up in like interviews and on TV rather than like at a live show. It's more just built in the promos.
That's also the problem with using celebrities there, is that before this, or like at this time, there's really no pay-per-views. There's no big event. There's no big blow off where you could say, we're just using Mr. T until here. There's all those. That's why the Rock and Wrestling kind of worked with them doing stuff with MTV and then them doing the first pay-per-view. That big kind of whatever. So they would have to, I feel like, alter their model here, but it is very like weekly TV based.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of really promo heavy stuff.
Yeah. Backstage interviews, the talk shows, all that stuff. Yeah. So then you have a great chance for like everybody to do what they were best at, essentially. And it's putting over their muscle, talking shit about the good guys. And it would just be so interesting of getting Kaufman in, because it would get weird. It's specifically with probably what he would say about other people, or what the relationships would end up being with.
And then
these
I think
managers.
you borrow from, because in history, in the butterfly effect, if this happens, him and Lawler does not happen.
Yeah, right.
So I think you do a Letterman appearance if Andre's on and Andy Kaufman it comes out and throws water on Andre. And Andre doesn't get to touch him at all because Andre is much slower. Now, at least we have a story a little more of Andre being slow and Andy getting away.
That'd be great. Right. Throwing water in his face and then Andy just runs away as fast as possible. Because I also think
outside of Memphis, Jerry Lawler was a very weird babyface. If you weren't there and didn't know his story and didn't grow up with like, oh, Jerry Lawler always being there, he kind of does not look like a babyface.
No. Yeah, I read something, I forget what it was. It was like in the height of Bret Hart being like the babyface. I think they did a show in Memphis and he faced Jerry Lawler, and it's like the article was titled like the one night heel turn of Bret Hart.
Yes.
It's because he was in Memphis.
That's very, like, Memphis is almost like the original Bizarro world, where it's like Jerry is always the same way, like Jacques Rougeau is always over in Montreal. No matter, you know what I mean? But he could be a terrible person and they'll just love him no matter what. Yeah. So I think Andre and Kaufman on Letterman is like the big one where it's like, okay, now we have to have a match.
Would there then be a few weeks later or something like that where Kaufman would be a guest and then Andre would show up?
I feel like he wouldn't.
Yeah.
Only because Andre's not like a let's run out there and do this kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know, I would just rather see the heels be that. I would love like a, Letterman's desk and then like 20 chairs. And it's how, Albano and it's Freddie Blassie and it's the Grand Wizard. And you're like, this is a mess. And maybe they just rough up the crew or do something ridiculous.
It's like one of them is the guest, and then like during the interview, they just each slowly start coming out one by one. Yeah, it's just like, hey, welcome in, Freddie Blassie. Hey, welcome in, and they just keep
and
getting
then
chairs for
them.
them.
The first guest Letterman brought out was like, I don't know, Jack Hanna from the zoo. You know what I mean? There's one regular guy, and then just a big
lot of wrestling managers.
Yeah.
Right. So basically the real celebrity guest is just getting slowly pushed out of the frame by all of these incoming managers. And he's
you
like,
just see like the shoulder.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh, that's amazing. So basically,
I do like the idea of what Anthony said, which is something happens on Saturday Night Live. Because that'd be very funny.
So this is 1979. So we have no Chevy.
Right.
We've got Bill and everybody else.
I forget who the cast of SNL.
I also think, unfortunately, we're in like full Blues Brothers mode at this point.
Right.
Yes.
So I think Buck Henry is hosting a lot.
Some of it's real. There's this Twitter account, and I love it. It's just called SNL hosts introducing musical acts.
Yes, and it's so much better than that stupid clip of Daniel Craig introducing The Weeknd. I hate it. And this is the perfect answer to it. It's so good.
But it's really funny when the old ones pop up and you see like they're like sitting in a chair and it's someone who's really old and you have no clue who they are, and there's like, everybody welcome, and they say some crazy obscure 70s band.
Yeah, that's back in the day where you're like, hey, I'm friends with this band. Can we have them on the show?
Yep.
That kind of thing.
But would it be someone as like someone from wrestling as the guest host and then something happens?
I mean,
or would it be someone comes in and interrupts and fights with Kaufman?
I think someone comes in because Andy, I think, is still a regular at this point. And, I can't see Andre hosting.
No.
To go on, Billy Preston. We'll be right back. Like I can't see that happening at all. And I can't think of anyone else of that roster, babyface wise, who's like commercially viable, who you'd want to put on TV in a non-wrestling. Nor like Bruno would be even worse.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. How about Vince McMahon?
Vince did a thing for Letterman. And let me see what year it was, because this might help out. He was a correspondent for their like New Year's show with a New Year's baby. You're going to have to put a series of links at the bottom of this episode.
Here's every reference RJ City makes in this episode.
This is a annotated bibliography.
Let me see how many is on this.
I'm looking at the roster, and there's not really the only, like, it's just because there's no one that's like hyper famous enough that could possibly be like, unless it is like a manager who people would know, but obviously Lou didn't get that kind of mainstream until Mania.
Not yet. Now, I will say, Freddie Blassie did. Freddie Blassie was already friends with Regis at this point.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
And lest we forget, Freddie Blassie was also once on an episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Freddie
How could we
Blassie-
forget? Right, Anthony? How could we forget?
How could,
When he was a wrestler, his main territory was LA.
Okay.
So he was very much in with that kind of crew. And I
Right.
think he had certain connections at the time. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can find the year on this. Vince McMahon reported on the New Year's Baby. I don't know why this isn't talked about enough. Oh, New Year's Eve 1985. So that's even way after.
Oh.
Wow.
Well,
wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
It's amazing that Freddie Blassie walked so that Dwayne The Rock Johnson could run.
Lest we forget, Freddie Blassie had a best-selling single, top in the charts. You
Wait,
pencil
really?
neck geek. Yeah, like all
Wow.
before, and that's why it's just like, I don't know. Some people was like, oh, The Rock did this, or it's mainstream. It's so it's so cool that wrestlers are releasing music now. I'm like, this is not new
Right,
at all. It's just quite typical. It's something I guess they should do. So,
Oh my goodness.
Be multi-talented.
yes. So
Crazy.
maybe Hulk is a heel here
Right.
because he didn't do much of anything except take orders from Freddie Blassie.
Mm-hmm.
So Freddie Blassie could make an appearance on SNL with Hulk, I suppose, and
Yes.
that's just like carny enough for possibly them to, for them to make an impact, I guess.
I think what you would do is do the old SNL thing where they're doing an impression. Say John Belushi is doing Freddie
yeah.
Blassie.
Doing the impression, and then the real
Yeah.
person comes out.
Yeah,
That'd
and
be
then
good.
he's all upset about it because he's down the hall. Like that's all. NBC was always like they made it seem like every single show was shot right next door to each other.
Yeah, yeah. That'd be perfect, actually. And then, oh yeah, that'd be really funny. What? So okay, so
So
then,
he's huffing and puffing, and he's like going towards the stage setup, and he's like,
Yes.
oh.
And I think there's a
Couldn't be
little
me.
hint of the and you really don't even need Andy Kaufman here.
Mhm.
But I think there's a little bit of that. Remember on Fridays when Andy Kaufman got into the whole thing with Michael Richards and they threw the cue cards and they made it seem like it was
Yes.
real, but it wasn't.
Oh,
I
yes.
think there'll be a little bit of like Freddie ripping up the cue cards and,
Yeah.
threatening
Would-
Don Pardo, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
would so okay, so Freddie Blassie comes in and is like, you're making a joke of me. Would then
Yeah.
would
You're
would
making a
it,
joke of me.
would it then be like, hey, look, I'm sorry, like it's nothing personal, or would he just keep ribbing him, and then Hogan would come in and like throw him through like a fake wall or something?
That's the real question. Would John Belushi sell for Freddie Blassie? That's what we really need to think about here. So maybe not. I think, maybe John Belushi isn't the right choice there. But if it's maybe there's Buck Henry, I think a Buck Henry would sell for Freddie Blassie. He can get thrown around. Maybe that's the better. Now this turned into booking an episode of SNL.
But that's okay. We have to build up all of the surroundings of this big match. Of this is just the one and done.
Yes. So I think if it's Buck Henry and maybe Hulk is played by John Belushi,
Okay.
maybe that's better.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think John would bump. I think John
Oh,
would
I'm
be a pretty
sure.
good bumper.
Yeah, if it was a wild bit of like something super exaggerated, and it's just
Yeah.
like getting thrown through like a paper wall or something like that, or like light
Yes.
plaster or whatever, that'd be
Yes.
really fun. It'd be super interesting because it'd be like, do you sell it as like a comical bit? Or, because it's SNL, or would you sell it as like it's really real, and like then all of a sudden like the TV crew like come in and are like, John, are you gay?
Yes, I think you do both. I think you sell it as a comedy bit, and then like Freddie Blassie doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And like as they do those old pan outs to go to break, you see him like deck a shadowy stagehand.
Okay. Just see, this was a Lauren was still there, right? Or was he?
Yeah. And he was also firmly, I think he would always do that thing when he tried to get the Beatles on the show.
Right. And you just see him, like, they do that pan out. You just see him like throw up his hands.
Yes. I would love to know what Lorne. Yeah. We should get his opinion on these kind of things, because there was no wrestling crossover, because by the time Hogan and Mr. T hosted, he was gone.
Right.
That was in like that Billy Crystal, Martin Short, Christopher Guest all-star year, because they thought they were going to just end the show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Who's then?
Ebersol
was the first wrestler on SNL after that?
After that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I feel like we go a really long time.
I think so. Yeah. It must have either
been. Is it
been
The Rock? Like, is it WrestleMania 2000? Is it that long? Because that seems like insane.
That's crazy. I mean, but that's the thing with wrestling in the mainstream culture. It's like, it was so there during the first Manias, and then just totally
it's not happening at all.
No, it just became a niche thing. So interesting. Anyways,
do you think
I legitimately thought that this episode was going to be wild and weird and kooky. This is so interesting because it's a really fun look at like golden era wrestling and like how you tell a story when you can't do weekly, or well, you are doing weekly stuff, but like you're not doing like telling a story in little segments here and there with big payoffs. It's like you got to tell a story to really make it seem as though it is real, and you're trying to do that via getting it in front of people's eyes who aren't watching it live in an arena. So super interesting.
And before the internet of being able to just like instantly send promos and like segments and clips from shows to each other, to your group chats, to whatever, to be like, oh, look at this person, look what's happening. A celebrity just showed up here. Like, no, there's no real way to talk about it unless you're just word of mouthing it with like your friends, and you're calling somebody being like, guess what, Andy Kaufman just brought out all of the heel managers, you have to watch Letterman.
Right. Yes.
Which
I think is the value of him building this little heel army that just went out and cut promos everywhere.
Yeah, they can basically just spread the word by crashing all of these programs, and of course the king of Hollywood, Freddie Blassie, just continuing to make appearances. And
so then, okay, so we've built up this like heel stable of shit talkers, essentially. What then incites the actual match? Because it's like if it's these group of guys who are basically saying that they're better, they're the best, whatever, going around and proving it by, attacking random people
I
who
think,
make fun of them. But like,
I think Andre comes on Letterman and they're like, so what's been going on with this Andy Kaufman? What do you think about this guy? And, whatever. I think he's, a piece of shit. Stick around, Billy Preston. And then
he's a big doo-doo head.
Andy comes and throws the water on him and then storms off. And then I think Andre says, whatever, you bring your friends, I'll bring mine. And then like, that's that. And then of course they would have to, that's like the launching pad. And then probably another month's worth of weekly TV to fill in the blanks. And say, look what happened on, Letterman. And it's like, Andre, like, what did you mean? And it's like, well, we're going to have a, tag match. This is who I want. and then he'll unveil his team.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that that's a good like inciting incident to then. Yeah, it's the throw the water on the face and run like a scared little kid, and then
Because the Andy Kaufman Lawler thing always seemed kind of backwards.
right.
You know, they did the match, and then they did the stuff on Letterman.
Yeah.
Which was a little like, wah, you know, whatever. This feels like, oh,
did it lead,
now I really want to see this.
Did it lead to any, like, because obviously,
it led to more Memphis stuff, but that's also like really in a bubble, especially away from New York, right?
Right. Interesting. Huh.
What we've really understood here is that people from Memphis don't watch Letterman.
And that they did not have a profound effect on celebrities making appearances in wrestling and in the mainstream wrestling scene.
No.
Yeah, because you're right. Because what should have sparked it off was Andy Kaufman talking shit about Lawler and Lawler slapping him, and then Andy wanting a match, and then that would have been the whole thing. And so now it's so then the way that we're doing it is that after Kaufman sort of gets involved with all these heels, then Andre is like, I don't like him. He comes out, throws water in his face, and then Andre's like, all right, fine, I'll beat you up. You pick your team, I'll pick mine.
Yeah,
you embarrassed me on live TV. He's supposed to be this undefeatable, insurmountable force, and this small man just dumped water right in his face. He's probably wearing a giant like furry white dress shirt, and he's just like, oh. and I think that is really nice, nice picture to see.
So who's the face team with Andre?
Well, I say so. Andre, Ivan Putski. Let me see who else is here. Let me look it up.
You got Duggan. You got DiBiase. Is that senior?
Yeah, it may be. So you have Andre. They have to be managed by Arnold Skoland, who was like the only babyface manager ever. Who do you have? You have Haystacks Calhoun. Do you want him on the team? You already have Andre.
You have one. Well, I mean, if the whole thing is going to be Andre putting together a team, would Andre put together a team of just like the biggest guys or the best
I feel
guys?
Like Andre, Ivan Putski, then maybe either Chief J Strongbow or Peter Maivia.
Right.
Because I think you need somebody to like just deliver chops to managers who don't want to bump.
Yeah.
And then
we're really taking into account representation in the 1979 wrestling scene here.
That was a very like New York thing, you know. That was like the bustling, you know, all like the immigrant community was there.
Yeah.
And then who else?
This is a
Patterson?
team.
Maybe not.
This is a team of everymans, of the working Americans.
Yes.
If there's anything,
turn it on TV and you're like, oh yeah, that's me, all right.
If there's anything that I've heard someone call Andre the Giant, is that he is the everyman.
Yes,
he is a everyman,
giant blue collar. So I would say Andre, Ivan Putski, Chief J Strongbow, and then do I say just Peter Maivia?
I think Peter Maivia.
Yeah, let's put him on there. There's no Rocky Johnson at this time. I don't think so.
No. Then the only
I would have put him there.
The only other people are that I would say are all people that kind of I don't think would be involved with this. Because I'm looking at Bob Backlund, Harley Race, Jim Duggan. I'm just like, would they care?
Yeah, no, I see a bunch of people on this roster saying no to this. Sure.
So I think that's
who I would say. They'd be managed by Arnold Skolins. And then we have Andy Kaufman, Jimmy and Johnny Valiant, and Hulk Hogan. Lou, yeah, okay, Lou. So it's a 5-man team.
Could be 5-on-4. Andre's 2 guys.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Lou Albano and Hulk Hogan, heel Hulk Hogan, which is exciting to think about. I also love how he looks with the Valiants. I'm like, this looks like a team, a group, and then you have Andy.
Stands out.
And does Andy? Does he try to dress up like the rest of his team? Because
I think so. I think we get away from
to be a part of it.
The thermal era of Andy Kaufman's here. I think he can be a little crazier here, and it's probably a little more fun.
Oh yeah. Wearing a friggin' oh my gosh. I can't imagine him in, because what did he had like a white t-shirt and like a single arm singlet or whatever.
Oh yeah, maybe put him in like the little like Andre. Remember when Bobby Heenan used to wear like the Andre one strap?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Except for he's bleached his hair blonde and he's
yes, and big
whatever
glasses
is left.
And
big glasses.
Yeah. And I also think, oh my God, there's plenty of, once those teams are announced, the babyface team, like there's plenty of material for the heel managers and Andy to just cut weekly promos on.
That's awesome.
And then it's also easy to fill in that TV with like, you have the Valiants against Peter Maivia and Chief J Strongbow, and you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And Putski against heel Hogan or whatever.
And then you can have spots where the different managers are with them, or then Kaufman like makes an appearance or something. And like maybe Kaufman gets involved in a match. Andre comes out and chases him off.
Right.
Yeah.
That there's more than enough stuff there. And also anytime, like those managers were all over that show. You know?
So let's talk about the match itself and some of the spots that we'll see. Or just the spot that we'll see, which is basically the end of the match.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of got to work backwards in a sense where you're like, you need, the final minute is just Andy.
We have booked 50 episodes and booked 50 dream matches and feuds and stuff, and this is the first time we have an actual wrestler.
Oh wow.
Because we're just fans where we go, oh, this is how we think a match would be put together, and now we have someone who actually like knows how to put together a match.
Well, and logically, I mean, I don't think it's that great, and I know it sounds like it's so mysterious, but it's not. It's like, writing any kind of story. You have the characters, and then you know where you want to go, which is, maybe the last minute of Andy finally getting it from everyone, like boom, 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 and then Andre, and it's just like the Andre special of couple punches, big headbutt, bullshit in the corner, and that just kind of, he'll just ram his ass into you in the corner, and then finally like sits on him.
Does Kaufman tag himself in, or does someone is everybody else down and someone tags Kaufman and then he's forced to go in?
He's forced to go in.
I think it finally happens like by accident. Where it's
he doesn't realize he's the last man.
Let's say it's Johnny. Let's say it's Lou Albano and he was getting his ass beat. And then finally at the end, like Ivan Putski punches him and Lou Albano stumbles 20 feet and goes back into the corner, but tags Andy as he does it.
Yeah.
And it's like that moment is like just huge, right? And everyone's like, and either he hard ways in, which I can't see him taking, or, he goes to leave and then you have the babies on the outside who throw him in, and it's the begging off on the knees and whatever. And then he turns around and it's just like, 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot. And then just like Andre.
Yeah.
So when you go from there and you have that whole ending, which is probably now 3 to 5 minutes, it suddenly got much longer when I'm thinking about like, you also want to say, and you don't, especially then, and with this, you would never want to like lose a pop.
Right.
So that tag is but that's like 10 seconds there.
Yeah, it's a
and
big
then you
moment.
start adding it up, it gets really long.
Because through the match, you could have moments where either Kaufman clearly doesn't tag himself in, and it's that sort of thing, or he tags himself in, does like a kick or two, or a stomp or something, and then quickly leaves.
If there's finally a little heat on Andre and he tags in and just kind of kicks Andre in the ass while he's on his hands and knees and then runs out, that's just like the best.
And so it's finally that moment of like, everybody, Kaufman has to get into the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I think you have to have, and then maybe Andre. So you do a thing where kind of the babies have to shine in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of little like, if it's Peter Maivia and Jimmy Valiant, they have to do a little thing. So, Peter gets his stuff in and everyone gets to like, it's like the opening curtain. Everyone comes out and like,
everybody gets their highlights.
Can do their thing.
Yeah.
They do that. And then there's maybe a mini heat on Andre, and he tags into, like a Peter Maivia or an Ivan Putski. Putski takes like the bigger heat. And then, Andy can do his stuff. And then he finally gets in with Lou, who, is not bumping. This is all based around people not bumping, like Andy and Lou, just not being physically able to take bumps. And then that one shot in the corner of like, oh my God, we finally got him.
Yeah,
and then we go. And also, like, there's so much. If you have Freddy on the outside and you have the Grand Wizard on the outside, like, and Arnold Skolin, like, everyone gets punched.
You have like 5 or 6 people on the outside.
Yeah, like a real mess. Similar to the first WrestleMania where, Bob Orton was out there and Muhammad Ali was the outside enforcer, that whole thing.
So then,
don't forget the cast of Taxi as well.
Ringside.
Yeah. So I think Christopher Lloyd.
Is the cast of Taxi supporting Andy Kaufman or just booing him?
No, I think they're like finally they've been pleading with him and they finally turn their backs.
Yeah.
And I think maybe there's a moment of Tony Danza ripping off his Andy Kaufman shirt.
I was thinking it cuts to them and it's like, here's the cast of Taxi in support of Andy Kaufman, and one of them's just looking hard at the camera, just like thumbs down,
and just the most disappointed Judd Hirsch ever.
Oh, that'd be funny. All right, so okay, so then everybody gets their stuff in. Obviously the Valiants and Hogan are taking a lot of bumps. Working a lot. Everybody getting their stuff in
until the end.
In the crowd.
Yeah, this is prime punch kick era.
Oh yeah,
for
sure. And then Lou gets in there, takes a couple, falls back, accidentally tags Kaufman in, who's been avoiding it the entire match. And he tries to run away. The good guys grab him, throw him in.
And perhaps maybe it's even Judd Hirsch.
Oh, maybe it's the
kick in the ring.
He tries to jump the railing. The cast just throws
the moral compass, Judd Hirsch.
They're like, you've been talking such a big game.
Yeah.
You've been wanting to be a wrestler, so go be a wrestler.
This is the teachable moment at the end of the episode.
Beautiful. And then he's in the ring and he looks up, and who is there in the center but Andre? And he's like, no.
I think he can do the old who's behind me routine. Who can this be?
He gets thrown back in by the good guys. He turns around to yell at them and be like, "What? Who do you think you are?" And he backs up and he does the cartoon like.
And as he's he's pleading with Andre, the other 3 babies come in behind him. he goes to leave. You know, maybe he shakes Andre's hand or tries to pat him and be nice and goes to leave. He turns around and it's boom, 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 and then Andre, holds this for like 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And then boom, one of those giant awkward punches.
And then we get the finish.
And Andy sells it like crazy.
Yeah. Andy Kaufman truly dies in the ring.
Yes.
And disappears forever.
That'd be wild.
I mean, he would have to get, I think, stretchered out for sure.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah,
the crowd would love that.
Yeah.
Just cheering
beautiful.
for the paramedics.
And then leaving a concerned Judd Hirsch alone in the ring saying, "What have I done? Have I gone too far?" You know?
You have Andre go ringside and Tony Danza like lifts up his arm.
Yeah. And hey, don't forget about Jeff Conaway, who totally slipped my mind.
Oh boy. Well, there we go. That is, I guess, then the feud of how many people? Essentially, if Andy Kaufman came into the WWF at the end of the 70s.
Yeah,
so,
basically everybody but Bruno, who definitely took the night off and it's like, call me when you're in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't need this shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I love that. It was super interesting. Just actually like having a very interesting, deep discussion about like that era of wrestling and like what it was to be like a manager and a character. And like, that was really cool. I like that a lot.
And I think we got a really amazing what if scenario of sort of what if the WWF just went all in on their first big celebrity feud.
Well, it's not even like this huge leap. It's just like, what if Vince Sr. said yes?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that would have been it. And then, you can butterfly it where you're like, does WrestleMania even happen 5 years later? Doesn't seem so special now, Yeah.
Well, because it's like, I guess I don't know because, I don't know how many celebrities at the time were talking about wrestling. But if Kaufman was like the first person to sort of publicly be like I want to be involved with wrestling as a celebrity, then that's really interesting of what then would happen later. Would other celebrities be like, oh no, I'm a fan of wrestling, I want to get involved,
right? Or is this too much for everyone?
Yeah, right. or people like, no thanks.
Yeah.
So let's assume that it takes off, that everyone is like, wow, Andy did a marvelous job. But, I think I could take on Andre the Giant or Andre's friends. What celebrities of that era would then step into the ring and be like, give me a shot?
I can't see any other celebrities really willing to be heel.
Yeah,
like that. So I see them, as babyface. I see maybe there's a Jimmy Valiant, Tony Danza feud.
Yeah, because obviously most of the celebrities at the time would want to present themselves as, the likable person that you'd then tune into their show or listen to their music or anything like that. While you'd need someone who truly, like Kaufman would, put himself completely into the character of being the bad guy, and want to act that way rather than like this celebrity that was slowly becoming what we know today as like the personality that like is an influential person.
Yeah.
Rather than like fully committing to whatever role you have. I'm sure there would be other people eventually that would be like interested in that down the road. But most of them would want to be like the hero and likable. So
very interesting.
It's interesting. It's cool. That's really, really interesting. I thought you were going to bring some wacky ass shit into this, but
well, I mean, it was a little wacky, but it was
a little wacky.
grounded. wackiness. We did mention, I think, Judd Hirsch a lot. And I think that may be a first for a wrestling podcast. I'm not sure.
We'll have to check the stats on that one.
Yeah. Well,
I
The
guarantee,
analytics, the SEO.
if you type in Judd Hirsch wrestling podcast and you see something else that comes up, I guarantee you I was the guest on that show.
Oh man. Well, I guess we have to ask the audience, how would you have booked the first sort of big celebrity appearance into wrestling? Who would it be? Would they be a big heel? Would it be a big face? Who do you think should have been that groundbreaking first in professional wrestling, merging celebrity Hollywood to wrestling? So let us know in the comments.
Even from, just the cast of Taxi.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of options there.
That's great. Well, so we don't have a question of the week segment. We wanted to do something a bit different because we have RJ. Yes. And RJ is very well known for his dry humor.
Is it?
I'll say.
Can you even just whatever? Okay, fine. Take it.
Is it like
I want to be called a humorist because it means I'm not that funny. The expectation is lower.
I love the term humorist. It's so
like
great.
Fucking like Dave Barry. Do you know that guy? He's like a humorist.
Maybe. I don't. Dave Barry.
But so,
oh my God,
Anthony, you have a lot of it's like who would win matchups.
I've got basically from my wrestling group chat, which is a strange mishmash of comedians and the siblings of comedians.
Amazing. I know? Can you list off who the comedians are? I'm interested now.
Of course. So they pitched in the group chat a bunch of fantasy matchups for RJ to rate and for him to comment on. So some of these comedians include Colin Sharp of the Sketchersons, Matt McCready and his brother Ty McCready. Yes. We've got Kyle Scott and we've got Paul JP, and all of them have submitted very odd matches for RJ to analyze or
adjudicate.
We also had a fun one that I have no clue how it would be by the one and only Nargang of Repo Man versus Cursor Cursive.
Yes.
I know. Did
you see who my response?
Yeah, you said that match would be a smash.
And I'll tell you why, Martin, because that's all the same person.
That's funny. I did not know that.
Repo Man, Crusher Khrushchev, and also became Smash from Demolition.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So,
I know who Repo Man is. I just didn't know. Okay, that's really funny.
Yes, all the same man.
There we go. Right. That's almost
let me hit you.
We should book that one next, Anthony. That would be our next big Mick Foley fighting himself 3 ways.
Yes, that's one of our most popular episodes where we just truly have a meltdown and book Mick Foley fighting all of his gimmicks.
Okay, so let's get to these dream, quote unquote, dream matches.
Dream matches. Well, I've got one from Colin Sharp, which is apt given the nickname that I received at the beginning of this episode. It is Ludwig Borga versus Kozlov.
Kozlov? Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. I want to hear this called in the back so badly. Both of them, Ludwig Borga is kind of like a Bad News Brown in a sense, where he was so legit that he could legitimately just say no to anything. And I'm not going to, whatever. Kozlov, my understanding, is bigger than Ludwig Borga. And is bigger and definitely more athletic but I don't think there would be a lot of suplexes without any assistance in this match.
Wow.
This would very quickly, I think, turn into a shoot match, but I would give the edge to Kozlov. Yes, I think Kozlov is just bigger and moves more quickly. And then I think during this match is when Ludwig starts to think about a career in politics.
Beautiful. Our next match comes from the comedian Paul JP, and he is wondering what his fantasy booking of PCO versus WCW RoboCop would be like.
Oh my God. I think at some point RoboCop would go, enough. Like finally you would see the breaking point of RoboCop.
Oh, Jesus.
Going, this is so ridiculous. I respect you. You are not human. Neither am I. And then I think at the end they do a respect handshake and then take apart the metal of the ring and make balloon animals out of them. Like twist them into different shapes because they're both good at bending metal for some reason.
I always thought you said they would have a respected handshake in the middle of the ring and then just a heavy makeout session.
And then I respect you. I respect you.
I respect you. All right. And coming down another silly train of thought. We've got Undertaker and fake Undertaker versus Kane and fake Kane.
Ooh. Ooh. Oh my God. Well, Kane always had those lifts and then in his boots, and then they fake Kane had like double the lifts and they looked like he was walking around in like high heels. She had like pumps. It was very like Spice Girls of him.
Yeah.
I would have to give the edge to the Undertaker family, because they also had such close ties with Leslie Nielsen, who famously looked for the missing Undertaker during that SummerSlam.
I remember those videos.
And this was all sponsored by Domino's. And then Undertaker delivers him a Domino's pizza while he's not looking on his desk. And I believe the line is pizza.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think because of that Leslie Nielsen kind of thing, I think would give them the edge. Beautiful. They have a stronger bond.
And
with Leslie
and finally,
Nielsen.
I have according to Matt's brother Ty, Matt McCready's dream match is Vince McMahon versus New Jack in a staple face match.
Oh my God.
Someone's gonna die.
Wow. I was frightened. I think I was almost on a show with New Jack once. I was just frightened at the idea. Like, I wasn't wrestling him. I was just frightened at the idea of it. I was just like, I don't need that tension in the locker room. Oh my God. I think New Jack would come out with like the double wide shopping cart, like the Costco one.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh shit. There are a lot of items in here
on weapons.
He really took advantage of his yearly membership in that one go of just buying lawn equipment and stationery.
Yes. But this is you said a staple face match?
That's correct. It's a staple face match.
And I think what he would do to bring it all around, he would staple a missing poster of the missing Undertaker to Vince's face. And then Leslie Nielsen would walk by and go, what? And then that would start the whole process all over again.
Oh my goodness.
And then it would be a Groundhog Day.
Yes.
I did forget there was one suggestion that could be very near and dear to RJ's heart. Who would win in a battle royal between the Golden Girls?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that was when I that was when I said
I had always said, and I feel like I've answered this question before. B was, the tallest, and I think the heaviest. If not, then Rue, maybe underneath her. But she was definitely the tallest. I want to give her the edge, also because we always forget this when we talk about Golden Girls wrestling. Sophia is her mother, and I think you don't want to see your child lose, and I think you would take one for the team.
Right.
And when push comes to shove, when it is every gal for herself, I don't think Rose or Blanche have a leg to stand on in that scenario. And you also have, Stan is going to get involved. The one for Herb Edelman will be doing a run-in. So I think the deck is really stacked in Dorothy's favor.
a distraction.
Yeah. And then, wait a minute, at the end, this is so beautiful. Just like at the end of the Golden Girls, she marries Leslie Nielsen. Did I put a bow on this or what?
Leslie Nielsen doesn't find the Undertaker, but he does find love.
Right. The real Undertaker was inside us all along.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was perfect. Full circle.
Yeah.
Coming around.
We've done it.
That was great.
We have done it.
So to close out the episode, as always, we do give a match recommendation to our listeners and watchers for a match that we want them to check out, whether it's something that we think is really important, really fun, weird, or whatever. RJ, what match would you recommend people go and watch? Either your favorite, something of yours, if you want to do that, or
no.
I figured.
Since I've talked about enough old stuff this year or this show, I will recommend a match from like this year, which is incredibly
Oh.
Yes. To me,
RJ
it's
talking about
my match of the year. Not that I ever have such a list, but it's Steve Corino versus his son, Colby Corino. You can find it on YouTube.
Okay.
Steve basically came out of retirement for it, and it's in a small gym. It's an indie show, but it's amazing. Especially, there were not audiences for the majority of this year.
Yeah.
And a lot of those matches is just difficult for me to watch. This one had, people there and it's like a small crowd, intimate show, but it's on YouTube. It's great. It's great. And I think it should be on everyone's do seek it out list. Cause I was like, oh wow, this is good stuff.
Was it with any specific promotion or?
Yeah. I mean, let me look it up and give the full credence.
I'm just
the
curious
big
for
time shout out
when I go and find it and link it and everything.
Yeah, if you put in Steve Corino versus Colby Corino, it is from PWF Crystal Coast Oceanic Championship.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah, PWF, and they're on YouTube. I don't know what PWF stands for. I guess I'm gonna have to click on it. Based out of Crystal Coast, North Carolina. Premier Wrestling Federation. Okay. I want to say.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a doozy. It is a lot of father and son. Harry Chapin should have done the ring announcing. Let me put it that way.
Beautiful. I'm definitely gonna have to go watch it now.
Yeah, it's really good.
Awesome. Well, RJ, Jesus, thank you so much for coming on this show.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I hope that worked for everyone.
I expected craziness, and I was pleasantly surprised by, honestly, a really fun, grounded, interesting discussion about golden era wrestling.
I am grounded, just not in this year.
I don't think any of us are, to be perfectly honest.
To be fair.
Yes.
But yes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on our 50th episode. This is a cool milestone for us. And it is very special to have you on. So of course,
yes.
If you want to plug anything, in your socials and whatnot, go right ahead.
But you can buy my coffee At rootlesscoffee.com, YouTube. What you'll put links on things, right?
Oh yeah. I
Then
especially
go look and browse and click.
as a trading card fan myself, I highly enjoy watching you open just these absolutely ridiculous random trading cards that I've never heard of.
Can I give you a little
in my
sneak
life.
peek of I haven't opened yet, something I found?
Sure.
Yes, of course.
My brother found it and gave it to me. This is a WCW Crazy Planet. It's got bubblegum, 3 mega stickers, and 2 bubblegum balloons with stickers, and 1 tattoo. Oh, this is going to be good. WCW. And it's not even, look at the picture of it. Sting hasn't even completed the headlock on Goldberg.
He says his arm around.
That's the most WCW thing ever. Just
guess-
this least heroic pose.
So I guess I can't ask this because you'll just have to watch RJ's video. Are you gonna eat the bubble gum?
Yeah, I always eat the bubble gum.
Oh man,
Yes, and that will be the most recent bubble gum I've ever eaten. Doing line openings because
wow.
I've eaten like Welcome Back Kotter bubble gum.
Oh,
you
I'm gonna
know?
have to watch that.
Oh my god!
Jesus.
It tastes like a PBS station. Like that's how old it is.
Oh boy.
Oh my gosh.
Woo.
But yes, go follow RJ on all the socials. We'll link to those. Of course,
Yes.
RJ City
Yes.
1 on Twitter.
Yes, and then one day you might even see me wrestle. Who knows?
Maybe. We'll see.
Well,
Chance
we
it.
hope so. Oh my goodness. Thank you again to our listeners, to RJ, to Martin, of course, who does all of the stuff on the back end. He runs the Book of Vince Twitter account. And
If you hate
thank
anything
you
that
to
we tweet out,
everybody.
it's because of me. But yes,
sorry,
thank you
Sean
to
Ross Sapp.
Hey. And of course, thank you to anyone who's been listening for the past year. To get us to 50, that's awesome, and really excited for 2022. So we'll see you in the new year.
Let's get some more. Yeah, let's get some more wrestlers on. Let's get some more amazing guests on, and let's keep overbooking feuds. Hell yeah.
Of course, if you want to follow anything that we do here at Unknown Era, our live streams, our gaming videos, or our other series and whatnot, you can do so by looking us up at UE_films. You can follow myself personally on Twitter and Instagram at Barton_Minute. You can also follow Anthony Hall
At Hall and Jokes on Instagram and Twitter.
And of course, you can follow the podcast on Twitter, our live tweets, promoting other stuff, interacting with fun people online at Book of Vince Pod. Thank you very much for listening and or watching. Keep being excellent. Go watch some wrestling, and we'll see you next time.
Stay safe, everybody.